He was a titan of industry, a man whose name was synonymous with power. After a bitter divorce, billionaire CEO Callum Donovan decided to stage the ultimate revenge. He invited his ex-wife, Lauren, the woman he'd cast aside, to his lavish annual gala. The plan, orchestrated by his stunning new fiancée, was simple: to parade his new life in front of her, to remind her of everything she'd lost, to shatter her in a public spectacle. But he never anticipated her response. She didn't come alone. He expected to see her broken and defeated. Instead, she walked in with a secret that would bring his perfectly curated world crashing down around him, proving that the deepest secrets can't be bought or buried. The air in Callum Donovan's penthouse office was worth more per cubic foot than the average suburban home. It was a sterile, glass-encased kingdom perched 50 stories above the Chicago skyline, a testament to a man who had bent the world to his will. Callum stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, not admiring the view, but seeing it as a reflection of his own dominion. At 36, he was the founder and CEO of Donovan Industries, a sprawling tech conglomerate he'd built from the ground up, with a ferocity that left competitors gasping in his wake. "It's perfect, darling," a voice purred from the Italian leather sofa. Genevieve Sinclair, his fiancée, crossed her long, slender legs. She held a thick, cream-colored card embossed with the Donovan Industries logo. "The Starlight Gala for Children's Futures." The irony is just delicious. Callum turned, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Genevieve was everything his ex-wife Lauren was not. She was a creature of high society, sculpted by ambition and polished by wealth. Her beauty was sharp, calculated, and a perfect accessory to his own power. "The board loves the charity angle," Callum said, his voice a low baritone that commanded attention. "It's good for the brand." "Oh, I'm not talking about the brand," Genevieve said, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on the invitation. "I'm talking about her, sending Lauren Peterson an invitation to this. It's a masterstroke of cruelty. You'll be on stage, celebrated as the city's foremost philanthropist. I'll be on your arm, wearing the Sinclair diamonds, and she'll be, where? At a table in the back, probably wearing something she bought on sale." The venom in her voice was a sweet poison to Callum. His divorce from Lauren 2 years ago had been the only public failure of his adult life. It wasn't the settlement that bothered him. He could have bought and sold her 1,000 times over. It was the principle. She had been the one to leave. Lauren, the quiet graphic designer he'd met before the billions. The woman who had once grounded him, had claimed he'd lost his soul to his ambition. She'd walked away from the penthouse, the private jets, the life Genevieve now reveled in. It was a wound to his pride that had never quite healed. "She won't come," Callum stated, more to himself than to Genevieve. "Lauren hates this world. She hates me." "Oh, she'll come," Genevieve countered, rising and gliding over to him. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her perfume enveloping him. "Curiosity, darling, and pride. She'll want to show you she's fine, that she's thriving. That's what will make it so perfect. She'll try to act unbothered, and every single flash of the camera, every toast in your honor, will be another little paper cut to her soul." He looked down at the spare invitation on his desk. Ms. Lauren Peterson. It looked so plain, so insignificant. His executive assistant, a ruthlessly efficient woman named Ms. Davies, had questioned the addition to the A-list. "Are you certain, Mr. Donovan?" she had asked, her tone betraying a rare hint of surprise. He had confirmed it with a curt nod. The plan was Genevieve's, but the malice was his. He wanted to see her. He wanted to look into her eyes and see a flicker of regret. He wanted her to witness the life he had built after her, a life even grander and more dazzling. He wanted to humiliate her, not with words, but with the sheer, crushing weight of his success. "Send it," he commanded, turning back to the window. "Courier it to her apartment. Make sure it requires a signature." He wanted to know the exact moment she held his triumph in her hands. 200 miles away, in a quiet, tree-lined suburb of Madison, Wisconsin, Lauren Peterson was trying to coax a smear of green pea puree off a tiny, stubborn chin. "Come on, Luke," she said with a tired smile. "Just one more bite for Mommy." Luke, her 1-year-old son, giggled and swatted the spoon, sending a small green glob onto her cheek. In the high chair next to him, his twin sister, Lily, banged her fists on the tray, her bright blue eyes, so unnervingly like her father's, watching the spectacle with glee. This was Lauren's world now. It was a world of scraped knees, sleepless nights, and a love so profound it physically ached. Her small two-bedroom apartment was cluttered with toys and smelled faintly of baby powder and artistic solvency, the turpentine and ink from her freelance graphic design work. It was a universe away from the silent, sterile perfection of Callum's Chicago penthouse. After the divorce, she had fled. She'd taken the modest settlement, enough to be comfortable, but not enough to be chained to him, and moved back to her home state, seeking anonymity. She'd told no one in Chicago where she was going. She'd changed her number. She needed to heal, and she had a secret to protect. She had discovered she was pregnant a month after she'd left Callum. The irony was devastating. During their last year together, their arguments had often circled around his refusal to start a family. "I'm building an empire, Lauren," he'd said, his voice cold and distant. "Children are a distraction I can't afford." That sentence had been the final nail in the coffin of their marriage. She knew then that the man she had married was gone, replaced by a CEO. So she kept the pregnancy to herself. It was her choice, her joy, and her burden. Telling Callum would have meant a war. He would have seen the children as assets, as heirs, as another part of his legacy to control. She wanted to give them a life, not a line of succession. The doorbell chimed, a sharp interruption to their messy dinner routine. Wiping her cheek, Lauren went to the door, her heart giving a little lurch of anxiety. She rarely had unexpected visitors. A courier stood on her doorstep, holding a digital scanner and a sleek, cream-colored envelope. "Signature for Lauren Peterson?" he asked. Confused, she signed and took the envelope. It felt heavy, important. Back inside, with the twins babbling in the background, she slid it open. The Donovan Industries logo made her breath catch in her throat. "Mr. Callum Donovan and Ms. Genevieve Sinclair request the pleasure of your company at the Starlight Gala for Children's Futures." She read it once, then twice. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. A gala for children. The hypocrisy was so thick she could taste it. It was a joke, a cruel, twisted joke designed to hurt her. Her first instinct was to tear it to shreds and throw it in the trash with the dirty diapers. She sank onto her sofa, the thick cardstock feeling cold in her hands. She could picture the scene perfectly. The glittering ballroom of the Drake Hotel, the clinking of champagne glasses, the fawning sycophants. Callum, looking impossibly handsome and powerful in his custom tuxedo. And his new fiancée, a woman she'd only seen in tabloids, draped on his arm. They wanted her there as a ghost at their feast, a living reminder of Callum's past that he had successfully conquered. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, she called her best friend Rebecca Walsh, a sharp-witted lawyer she'd known since college. "You will not believe what just showed up at my door," Lauren said, her voice tight with a mixture of anger and disbelief. She explained the invitation. "That absolute son of a bitch," Rebecca breathed into the phone, "and the new girlfriend, Genevieve the Vulture Sinclair. Of course, this is her idea. This has her claw marks all over it. I'm throwing it out, obviously," Lauren said. "I'd rather walk barefoot over hot coals." "No," Rebecca said, her voice suddenly firm. "No, you're not. You're going." Lauren was stunned into silence. "What?" "Becca, did you hear what I said? They want to humiliate me. And you're going to let them? By hiding away?" "Lauren, listen to me. Hiding is what he expects. He thinks you're a broken little mouse he can scare back into its hole. You are not broken. You are a mother of 2 beautiful children and a successful business owner. You're a survivor." "I'm a freelance designer who works from her living room, Becca. He's a billionaire." "And what is he a billionaire of? Money? Power? He's bankrupt in every way that actually matters. You have Luke and Lily. You have a life you built yourself, free of him. You don't go there to impress him. You go there to show yourself that he has no more power over you. You walk in there with your head held high, have 1 glass of mediocre champagne, smile politely, and leave. You show him that his new, shiny life doesn't affect you in the slightest. That's the most humiliating thing you could ever do to a man like Callum. Lauren was quiet, staring at the invitation now lying on her coffee table. Rebecca's words sparked something inside her. Not a desire for revenge, but a flicker of defiance. For 2 years, she had lived in the shadow of their breakup. She had defined herself by her escape from him. Maybe it was time to stop running. "I can't get a babysitter on such short notice," she said, her excuse sounding weak even to her own ears. "I'll drive down from Milwaukee. I'll watch them. We'll make a weekend of it." "Please, Lori, do it for you." A new idea, wild and terrifying, began to form in Lauren's mind. It was a gamble so audacious it made her heart pound against her ribs. Rebecca said to go and show him she'd built a new life. Callum and Genevieve wanted her to see what she'd lost. What if she showed them exactly what she had gained? "Okay," Lauren said, her voice barely a whisper, but filled with a sudden, steely resolve. "I'll go, but I'm not coming alone." The week leading up to the gala was a whirlwind of calculated preparation for three very different people. In Chicago, Genevieve Sinclair orchestrated her triumph. Her days were a blur of fittings and appointments. The dress was a custom Oscar de la Renta, a column of shimmering silver fabric that cost more than Lauren's car. The Sinclair diamonds, a family heirloom, were retrieved from a bank vault, their cold fire a promise of the dynasty she was marrying into. She worked with the gala's event planner to ensure the seating chart was a masterpiece of social warfare. Lauren Peterson's name was placed at table 42, in the far corner of the ballroom, nestled between a low-level city official and a dry cleaning magnate who had donated the bare minimum for a seat. It was social Siberia. "She'll have a perfect view of the head table," Genevieve explained to Callum over dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant. "She'll be able to see everything, but won't be able to speak to anyone of consequence. It's poetic." Callum found himself increasingly agitated by Genevieve's glee. A part of him, a part he refused to acknowledge, was uneasy. He'd wanted to wound Lauren's pride, yes, but Genevieve's meticulous, joyous planning felt cruel in a way that pricked at a long-dormant conscience. He remembered a different Lauren, one who cried at sad movies and rescued stray cats. He pushed the memories away. That Lauren was gone. He had a future to secure, and Genevieve was a key part of it. Her social connections and old money name legitimized his new money empire. He focused on his speech. It was about legacy, about building a future for the next generation. He practiced it in front of the mirror, the words feeling hollower each time. He was donating $10 million to the charity that night, a figure that would guarantee headlines. It was a business transaction, an investment in public perception. He was building a future for anonymous children while steadfastly refusing to have his own. The irony, which Genevieve found so delicious, was beginning to leave a bitter taste in his mouth. In Madison, Lauren's preparations were of a different sort. There were no couturiers or jewelers. Her first call was to a local seamstress, an older woman named Mrs. Gable. Lauren had found a simple, elegant navy blue gown at a consignment shop. It was timeless and understated. She paid Mrs. Gable to tailor it perfectly to her figure. It wasn't a dress meant to compete. It was a dress that said, "I am comfortable in my own skin." Her biggest challenge was logistics. How does one walk into a black tie gala in downtown Chicago with two one-year-olds? She couldn't just carry them. She found her solution online. A sleek, high-end double stroller, narrow enough to navigate doorways but stylish enough not to look completely out of place. It was her biggest splurge, but it was essential. Rebecca arrived on Friday afternoon, a suitcase in one hand and two giant teddy bears in the other. "Auntie Becca is here to enact Operation Shock and Awe," she announced, scooping up Lily, who squealed with delight. As Rebecca played with the twins, Lauren felt a wave of doubt. "Is this insane, Becca? Am I about to make the biggest fool of myself? They'll have security throw me out." "They won't," Rebecca said, her expression serious as she looked up from the floor. "Think about it. Callum Donovan, billionaire philanthropist, having a woman and two babies thrown out of his own children's charity event? The PR would be catastrophic. He's trapped by his own image. And you're not crashing. You have an invitation." She pointed at the cream-colored card on the mantelpiece. "An invitation for Ms. Lauren Peterson. It doesn't say +1. It also doesn't say no children allowed. You are within your rights. That's a lawyer's answer, Lauren said with a weak smile. It's the truth. You're not doing this out of spite, Lori. You're doing it to close a chapter. You're taking back the narrative. He wrote you out of his story, so you're showing up with your own sequel. On the night of the gala, Lauren got ready with trembling hands. As she zipped up the navy dress, she looked at her reflection. She wasn't the same woman who had left Chicago. Motherhood had softened some edges and sharpened others. There were faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, but those eyes also held a new depth, a fierce, protective strength she'd never known before. She dressed Luke in a tiny tuxedo onesie, and Lily in a little velvet dress that matched her own. They looked absurdly, heartbreakingly adorable. As she strapped them into their stroller, her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. She drove the 2 hours to Chicago, the twins sleeping soundly in the back. She parked in a public garage a block away from the Drake Hotel, a place she had once frequented for brunch with Callum. The memories felt like they belonged to another person. Pushing the stroller down the magnificent mile, the cold November air biting at her cheeks, she felt a strange sense of calm descend upon her. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of purpose. She wasn't doing this for Callum. She was doing it for the woman in the mirror and for the 2 small children breathing softly in front of her. The entrance to the hotel was a swarm of flashing lights and valet drivers. Limousines and black cars disgorged a parade of Chicago's elite. Women in jewels and men in tuxedos swept up the grand staircase, oblivious to the woman in the simple navy dress standing on the sidewalk with a double stroller. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the stroller toward the entrance, her heels clicking softly on the pavement. This was the moment of no return. The doorman, a portly man with a kind face, looked at her, then at the stroller, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Ma'am, the gala entrance is up the stairs." "I know," Lauren said, her voice steady. "Is there a ramp or an elevator for accessibility?" Her use of the word accessibility was a shield. The doorman, trained to accommodate, immediately changed his demeanor. "Of course, ma'am. Right this way." He led her to a side entrance and a service elevator that opened right into the grand foyer, bypassing the main staircase. When the doors slid open, she was there. The air was thick with perfume and the buzz of 100 conversations. A string quartet was playing Vivaldi, and across the marble floor, standing near the entrance to the ballroom, was Callum. He was laughing at something a portly man with a cigar was saying. Genevieve was at his side, a vision in silver, her hand possessively on his arm. He looked like a king in his court. Lauren pushed the stroller forward. People began to turn. The sight was so incongruous, a woman alone pushing a double stroller through a sea of couture and champagne, that it created a ripple of silence that spread outwards. A woman in a red dress gasped. A man lowered his champagne flute. The chatter began to die down. Callum sensed the shift in the room's atmosphere. He turned his head, a slightly annoyed expression on his face, wondering what had interrupted the flow of his evening. His eyes scanned the crowd and then they landed on Lauren. For a moment there was just confusion. He recognized her instantly despite the 2 years. She looked different, but the same. The simple dress, the way she held her head. But then his gaze dropped. It dropped from her face to what was in front of her, to the stroller, to the 2 small, perfectly formed children sitting inside it. He saw Lily first, her dark blue eyes a mirror of his own, staring back at him with placid curiosity. Then he saw Luke, who had a tuft of dark brown hair that curled at the forehead exactly the way Callum's did as a boy. The world around Callum Donovan went silent. The music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, it all faded into a dull, distant roar. His own breath caught in his chest. His smile froze, then collapsed. The color drained from his face, leaving behind a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Genevieve, noticing his change, followed his line of sight. Her perfectly painted smile faltered, replaced by a sneer of disbelief, which quickly curdled into incandescent rage. "What is she doing here?" she hissed, her voice low and sharp. But Callum didn't hear her. He couldn't hear anything. He was locked in a silent, deafening tableau with the woman he thought he had erased from his life. The woman he had invited to Humiliate, and she had come with twins. and she had left him utterly, completely speechless. The silence in the grand foyer lasted only a few seconds, but for Callum, it stretched into an eternity. In that compressed time, his mind raced, trying to process the impossible sight before him. Twins, Lauren, twins. The words were a frantic, nonsensical loop. His meticulously constructed world, a fortress of power and control, had just been breached by a double stroller. Lauren met his gaze across the marble floor. There was no malice in her eyes, no triumph, just a quiet, unyielding resolve. She had delivered her message without saying a word. The spell was broken by Genevieve. "Security!" she snapped, her voice high and shrill, drawing the attention of everyone who hadn't already been staring. "Get her out of here! She's crashing!" Two burly security guards in black suits started to move towards Lauren, but Callum, jolted out of his stupor by Genevieve's screech, raised a hand. "Stop!" he commanded. His voice was hoarse, unfamiliar to his own ears. The guards froze, confused. All eyes were now on Callum. He was the epicenter of a drama far more compelling than any charity auction. He took a hesitant step forward, then another. He felt like he was walking through water. Each step was a monumental effort. As he approached, the details of the children came into sharp, painful focus. The boy, Luke, had the distinct shape of his jaw. The girl, Lily, had a small mole just above her lip, the same mole his own mother had. It was an insignificant detail, a secret piece of genetic trivia, but it hit him with the force of a physical blow. There was no doubt. There was no possibility of a mistake. They were his. "Lauren," he breathed, his voice barely audible. "What is this?" "This is my life, Callum," she said softly, her hands resting protectively on the stroller's handlebar. "This is Luke, and this is Lily." Genevieve had followed him, her face a mask of fury. "Don't you dare talk to her, Callum. She's making a scene. This is a pathetic, desperate cry for attention." She turned her venom on Lauren. "You are pathetic. Did you really think you could show up here with these? And what? He'd take you back? You are nothing but a gold-digging parasite." The accusation, so loud and public, caused a fresh wave of murmurs to sweep through the crowd. But it had the opposite effect Genevieve intended. Her raw, undisguised cruelty made her look shrill and panicked, while Lauren, standing quietly with her children, appeared composed and dignified. Before Lauren could respond, a new player entered the scene. Nathaniel Shaw, CEO of rival tech firm Nexus Corp and Callum's chief nemesis, had been watching from the edge of the crowd with a predatory stillness. He was a silver-haired, impeccably dressed man, known for his ruthless business tactics and his uncanny ability to exploit his opponent's weaknesses. And Callum had just revealed a weakness the size of a crater. Nathaniel strode forward, a look of faux concern on his face. "Is everything all right here, Callum? Seems to be a bit of a commotion." He glanced at Lauren, then did a theatrical double-take at the twins. "Well, hello there," he said, his voice smooth as silk. He extended a hand to Lauren. "Nathaniel Shaw, I don't believe we've had the pleasure." Lauren, caught off guard, shook his hand. "Lauren Peterson." "Peterson?" Nathaniel mused, his eyes twinkling with mischief as he looked at Callum. "Any relation?" Callum felt a surge of possessive rage, a feeling so primal it shocked him. This was his crisis, his family, his humiliation. And Shaw was circling like a shark that smelled blood. "Stay out of this, Shaw," Callum growled. "I'm merely trying to be a gentleman," Shaw said, his smile widening. He then turned his full attention back to Lauren. "You know, Miss Peterson, I've always admired artistry and courage. I'm looking for a lead designer for our new branding initiative, someone with a fresh perspective. Perhaps you'd be interested in discussing it sometime?" He smoothly produced a business card and offered it to her. It was a power play of breathtaking audacity. In front of everyone, Nathaniel Shaw was not only acknowledging Lauren, but offering her a prestigious job at his rival company. He was legitimizing her, elevating her, and twisting the knife in Callum's side all at once. Lauren, seeing the move for what it was, hesitated for only a second before taking the card. "Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I'll certainly consider it." Genevieve looked as if she might actually explode. "How dare you?" she shrieked at Lauren. "You come here to ruin our night, and now you're flirting with his rival? You have no shame." It was then that Lily, startled by the shouting, let out a soft whimper. Luke followed suit, his face scrunching up as he began to cry. The sound of the baby's crying cut through the tension like a blade. It was a real human sound in a room full of artifice. And it was that sound that finally broke Callum. He looked from Genevieve's contorted, angry face to Lauren, who was instantly leaning over the stroller, murmuring soft, comforting words to her children. In that single moment, he saw everything with a blinding, horrifying clarity. He saw Genevieve's shallow cruelty and Lauren's deep, instinctual love. He saw the life of glittering emptiness he had chosen and the life of profound meaning he had thrown away. The humiliation he had planned for Lauren had boomeranged and struck him with a force he could never have imagined. He wasn't just embarrassed, he was annihilated. "Enough," he said, his voice filled with a weary authority that silenced the room again. He looked at Genevieve. "Stop talking, now." He then looked at Lauren, his eyes pleading. "We can't do this here." He turned to his assistant, Ms. Davies, who had appeared at his elbow, her face a perfect, professional blank. "Get my car, the private entrance, and clear a path." He looked back at Lauren. "Please, come with me. We'll go to my office. We need to talk." Lauren looked at her crying children, then at the sea of gawking faces, and finally at Callum. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw, desperate vulnerability she had never seen before. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. This was about the two innocent lives caught in the middle. She gave a single reluctant nod. As Ms. Davies efficiently cleared a path, Callum walked beside the stroller, not touching it, but creating a protective barrier with his own body. The whispers followed them as they exited the ballroom, a disgraced king and the quiet woman who had just checkmated him. Genevieve was left standing alone in the center of the foyer, the silver dress and the Sinclair diamonds suddenly looking like a cheap costume. Her perfect night was in ruins, and she was the punchline of a story that would be all over the city by morning. The Donovan Industries building was silent and dark, a sleeping giant. The private elevator ascended to the 50th floor in a smooth, soundless glide. The journey was filled with a tension so thick it felt hard to breathe. Luke and Lily had cried themselves to sleep in the car, their small chests rising and falling in the dim light of the elevator. Callum's penthouse office was just as Lauren remembered it, vast, impersonal, and immaculate. The only difference was a large abstract painting on the wall that had replaced a photograph of the two of them, smiling on a beach in Hawaii. The removal was a deliberate act of erasure, and it stung more than she expected. Callum gestured towards the leather sofa. "Please." Lauren maneuvered the stroller into a corner and carefully unbuckled the sleeping twins, laying them down on the soft leather. She covered them with a cashmere throw blanket that was draped over the back of the sofa. The domestic act felt surreal in this temple of corporate power. Callum stood by the window, his back to her, staring out at the city lights. He looked utterly lost. The confident, ruthless CEO had vanished, replaced by a man drowning in the wreckage of his own making. "They're 1 year old," Lauren said softly, breaking the silence. "Their birthday was last month." He flinched as if she'd struck him. He did the math in his head. 1 year. That meant she was already pregnant when she left. He turned around slowly, his face etched with a pain and confusion that seemed to age him a decade. "Why, Lauren?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me? All this time. A year. You had my children and you never told me." The question ignited a spark of anger in Lauren. The hurt she had suppressed for 2 years bubbled to the surface. "Why? You want to know why, Callum? Should I have called you after our last conversation? The one where you told me that children were a distraction you couldn't afford? The one where you made it explicitly clear that a family was an obstacle to your empire?" Her words hit their mark. He visibly recoiled, the memory of that conversation clear in his mind. He had said it. He had meant it. "I was building a future for us," he said weakly, the excuse sounding pathetic even to him. "No," she shot back, her voice gaining strength. "You were building a future for you. I was just a part of the set dressing, an accessory, just like your new fiancé. I left to give myself a real life. And when I found out I was pregnant, I made a choice. I chose to give them a life of peace, not to use them as pawns in a war with you. What would you have done, Callum? Sent your lawyers? Fought me for custody? Tried to buy them? I wasn't going to let my children become another one of your assets. Every word was the truth, and he knew it. He sank into the chair opposite her, the fight gone out of him. He looked at the two small forms sleeping on the sofa. His children. A son. A daughter. He had missed their birth. He had missed their first words, their first steps. He had missed an entire year of their lives, a year he could never get back, all because of his own blind, selfish ambition. The gala, the plan to humiliate her. It all seemed so petty and childish now. He hadn't just lost a wife. He had unknowingly abandoned his own children. His phone buzzed violently on the desk. The screen lit up. Genevieve. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, he picked it up and silenced it without looking. I didn't come here tonight for this, Callum, Lauren said, her voice softening. The anger was fading, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. I didn't come for a scene or for money. I came because I was tired of being afraid of you. I was tired of letting you have that power over me. I just wanted to show you and myself that I was fine, that I had moved on. She glanced at her sleeping children. And this is my life. They are my life. I couldn't show you I was fine without showing you them. The door to the office opened, and Ms. Davies entered silently. Mr. Donovan, your sister's on the line. She says it's an emergency. Callum was confused. His younger sister, Jessica, a pediatrician living in Seattle, rarely called this late. He nodded to Ms. Davies and took the call, putting it on speakerphone, his mind still too fractured to do otherwise. Callum? What in God's name is going on? Jessica's voice was sharp with worry. My friend Brenda is at that gala. Her phone has been blowing up my text messages for the past hour. She sent me a picture. Callum, a picture of a woman and two babies. She said Genevieve had a meltdown and that you left with this woman. Is it Lauren? Callum couldn't speak. He just looked at Lauren, whose face was pale. Oh my God, it is, Jessica said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Callum, Brenda said the children, they look. Callum, are they yours? The silence stretched. Finally, Callum managed a single, choked word. Yes. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line, followed by a sound that was half sob, half laugh. I knew it, Jessica whispered. I knew you were an idiot, but I never thought. I always told you not to let her go. I always told you that woman Genevieve was a snake. Her voice turned fierce. Don't you dare hurt her, Callum. Not again. Whatever you do not let your pride or that horrible fiancé of yours ruin this. This is a miracle, do you hear me? A miracle. Jessica hung up. Callum stared at the phone, his sister's words echoing in the silent office. A miracle. He looked at Lauren, at the two sleeping children, at the shambles of his life. For the first time, he saw past the balance sheets, the stock prices, and the public image. He saw the gaping hole at the center of his own existence. He had spent years building an empire of glass and steel, only to realize he was living in an empty castle. Meanwhile, a new face from Lauren's new life was about to enter the picture. Back in Madison, Rebecca was growing worried. It was past midnight, and she hadn't heard from Lauren. She sent a text, then another. No reply. Finally, she made a call she had been hesitant to make. She called Dr. Owen Matthews. Lauren had met Owen, a kind and handsome pediatrician, a few months ago at a local park. They had struck up an easy friendship, bonding over their shared love for children. Owen was patient, warm, and attentive, everything Callum was not. He'd asked her out to dinner a few times, but Lauren, still guarded, had always politely declined. But she had given him her number, and he had become a quiet, supportive presence in her life. Dr. Matthews, Owen, sorry to call so late, Rebecca said, unable to hide the anxiety in her voice. It's Rebecca Walsh, Lauren Peterson's friend. I'm worried. She went to Chicago for an event, and she's not answering her phone. I know it's a long shot, but she mentioned you once worked at Northwestern Memorial. Do you have any contacts in Chicago? I just have a bad feeling. Owen, a man of action, was instantly alert. Don't worry, Rebecca. I'll make some calls. I'm sure she's fine, but I'll see what I can find out. Keep me posted if you hear from her. The threads of Callum's past and Lauren's present were beginning to draw together, pulling them all toward an inevitable reckoning. In his silent office, 50 floors above the city, Callum Donovan finally began to understand the true cost of his ambition. It wasn't just his marriage. It was a year of lullabies he'd never sung, a year of tiny hands he'd never held. It was everything. The first light of dawn began to creep over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. It filtered through the glass walls of Callum's office, falling upon the two sleeping children. For Callum, it felt like the first morning of a new and terrifying world. He hadn't slept. He had spent the night watching his children breathe, a silent, solitary vigil. Lauren had dozed fitfully in the large armchair, waking every so often to check on Luke and Lily. An unspoken truce existed between them. The anger and accusations of the night had given way to a shared, exhausted vulnerability. The buzz of Callum's phone on the desk broke the silence. He glanced at the screen. Genevieve, 117 missed calls, followed by a string of texts, each more frantic and venomous than the last. He picked up the phone, his thumb hovering over her name. He thought of her shrill voice in the foyer, the ugliness in her eyes as she looked at his children. He thought of his sister's words. "That woman is a snake." He pressed the block button. Then he deleted her contact information entirely. It was a small digital act, but it felt monumental. It was the first brick he had ever laid in the foundation of a different life. He then called his head of security. "Frank," he said, his voice low but firm, "Ms. Sinclair's belongings are to be packed and moved out of my penthouse by noon. All of them. Change the locks. She is no longer welcome in the building or at any Donovan Industries property. Am I clear?" "Crystal, Mr. Donovan," the voice on the other end replied without hesitation. He hung up. He looked at Lauren, who had been watching him, her expression unreadable. "It's over," he said simply, with Genevieve. It was over the moment she looked at them with such hatred. Lauren said nothing. It wasn't a victory. It was just a fact. The drama with Genevieve was a sideshow. The real issue lay between the two of them, and the two small children still sleeping soundly. As if on cue, Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around the strange, cavernous room, her gaze falling on Callum. She didn't cry. She just watched him with those serious, intelligent eyes. His eyes. Callum's heart seized. He took a hesitant step closer. "Hey," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He knelt down so he was on her level. "Hi, Lily." He slowly extended a hand. After a moment's consideration, Lily reached out her own tiny hand and wrapped her fingers around his thumb. Her grip was surprisingly strong. For the first time in his adult life, Callum Donovan felt a sense of connection so pure and overwhelming that it brought tears to his eyes. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals, hostile takeovers, and international mergers. But nothing had ever felt as real or as important as this small hand in his. At that moment, Lauren's phone, which she'd put on silent, lit up with a call from an unknown Chicago number. "Wary," she answered. "Lauren, it's Owen Matthews. Are you all right?" "Rebecca called me. She was worried sick." Lauren's shoulders slumped with relief at the sound of his calm, steady voice. "Owen! Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My phone died earlier, and a lot has happened." "I'm in Chicago," he said. "I drove down this morning. I was worried. When Rebecca told me the hotel, I had a bad feeling. Where are you? Are you and the children safe?" The genuine, uncomplicated concern in his voice was a stark contrast to the vortex of drama she was in. I'm at the Donovan Industries building," she said, her voice dropping. There was a pause on the other end. "Okay," Owen said, his tone professional and reassuring. "I'm 20 minutes away. Do you need me to come and get you? Just say the word." Callum, who had overheard the conversation, felt a sharp, unfamiliar pang of jealousy. Who was Owen? Why was he driving to Chicago for her? He realized with a jolt that Lauren had a life, a real life with friends and other men who cared for her. He had no claim on her. He had forfeited that right 2 years ago. "Thank you, Owen. That means a lot," Lauren said. "Can I call you back in a little bit? We're about to leave." She ended the call, her mind reeling. Callum stood up, the spell of the moment with Lily broken. "Who was that?" he asked, unable to keep the edge out of his voice. "A friend," Lauren said simply, her expression guarded. She began gathering their things, her movements efficient and purposeful. It was time to go. "Lauren, wait," Callum said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Don't leave. Not like this. I know. I have no right to ask you for anything. I've been a fool, an arrogant, blind fool. I threw away the most important thing in my life for what? For buildings and stock prices." He gestured around the opulent office. "None of this matters. I see that now. I know I can't undo the past year. I can't get back the time I've lost with them, but please let me try to be a part of their future. Let me be their father." His plea was raw and stripped of all artifice. It was the most honest thing she had ever heard him say. "Being a father isn't a title you claim, Callum," she said softly, but her voice was firm. "It's something you earn, day by day. It's about being there for the fevers, the scraped knees, the bedtime stories. It's not about trust funds and board seats. I don't know if you're capable of that." "Let me prove it," he begged. "I'll do anything. I'll sell the company. I'll move to Madison. I don't care. I just want to know my children." Luke had woken up now and was sitting up, rubbing his eyes. Callum looked from Lily's face to Luke's, seeing his legacy not in the skyline outside his window, but in these two perfect, tiny human beings. Lauren saw the genuine transformation in his eyes. The ruthless CEO was gone, replaced by a man terrified of losing something he had only just found. She knew this road would be long and complicated. Trust would have to be rebuilt from the ground up. But her children deserved to know their father, provided he could become the man they deserved. "Okay, Callum," she said, her voice wavering slightly. We can talk. We can figure out a plan. For them." A wave of relief so profound washed over Callum that his knees felt weak. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a reunion. It was a beginning, a chance, and it was more than he deserved. He helped her with the stroller, his movements clumsy and uncertain. As they walked to the elevator, he didn't walk ahead of her, as he always used to. He walked beside her. It was a small change, but it was everything. The story of the gala, of course, became the stuff of legend in Chicago's elite circles. Genevieve Sinclair disappeared from the social scene, her reputation in tatters. Nathaniel Shaw sent Lauren a handsome offer, which she politely declined, along with a note that simply said, "Well played." Callum Donovan began to change. He started leaving the office at 5. He bought a house in Madison, a modest one by his standards, just 2 blocks from Lauren's apartment. He showed up, not with gifts, but with his time. He learned how to change a diaper, how to make pancakes in the shape of dinosaurs, how to patiently listen to a story babbled in a language only a 1-year-old understands. Lauren did not fall back into his arms. She went on a date with Owen Matthews, and then another. She was building her own life, and she would not give up her independence easily. But she allowed Callum into their children's lives, watching him, testing him, and seeing the slow, arduous, but sincere transformation of a man learning that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in moments. The future was unwritten. It was not a fairy tale ending, but something far more real and more precious. It was a story of redemption, of second chances, and of a millionaire CEO who invited his ex-wife to humiliate her, only to find that she had brought with her the 2 small miracles that would end up saving him from himself. And that is where our story pauses for now, not with a perfect storybook ending, but with a new beginning that is infinitely more complex and authentic. This journey was never just about sweet revenge. It's a profound lesson about redemption, second chances, and the true definition of the word wealth. Callum Donovan, a king who reigned from the pinnacle of his success, had to learn the costly lesson that his entire empire was nothing more than an empty castle. He had gained the world but lost the only thing that truly mattered. Now he is just beginning his thorny journey of redemption, not with money or power, but with the smallest of actions, learning to change a diaper, learning patience, learning how to be a father. As for Lauren, she didn't walk into that gala seeking vengeance. She came seeking self-respect, to prove that she was anything but broken. But in doing so, she unintentionally became the catalyst for profound change, offering the very man who shattered her heart a chance to reclaim his lost soul. So where does the story go from here? Is Callum's belated repentance enough to heal the deep wounds he inflicted? Should Lauren give Callum, the father of her children, a chance to rebuild their family? Or should she choose a peaceful new beginning with the kind Dr. Owen? If you were in Lauren's shoes, what would your heart tell you to do? Share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. Your discussion truly becomes the next chapter of this story. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our compelling real-life stories in the future. Thank you for listening.